is the Rangers Journal night.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to the Rangers Journal. It's Sunday night and we're bringing you something a bit different tonight. We are going to do a full match review of the Dundee game. It's going to be painful, I suspect, but a couple of reasonably sensible gentlemen with me to break through the goals of it, and Scotty will be joining us in a bit. So I'll come at you, Chris, first. How you kind of feeling after all that yesterday? I think there was a bit of anticipation before, and then for someone like me, it'd be a different story after.
Absolutely, Dave. And I think the feeling is apathy. I think is the feeling at the moment. You want to walk away from that performance with anger, but I think the anger is passed so quickly already, especially after last Saturday. And then when you look at what happened yesterday, it's just apathy. You don't have the words for it. And you could understand if they put a performance in and they tried and just wasn't working, but I don't think we've seen a performance until the 85th minute. And at that point, all tactics were out the window. So yeah, it's the feeling wasn't great coming home last night after the game, and still even now, just looking back on it and looking at what happened, it's not been a great couple of weeks for Rangers when it comes to the start of the league.
Absolutely, mate. And I think apathy is very much kind of the word at the minute from what I've seen kind of around social media, speaking to other Rangers fans. It's just a general feel of apathy. I know obviously Martin's come in, it's all new to him, he's trying to get his ways across, and we'll delve into that a bit as we go through the pod. But I think what can be forgotten sometimes is we've seen this film multiple times in the last few years, and I think for a lot of fans it's, oh Christ, here we go again. I'll come to yourself, Billy. How were you feeling after that? Was it much the same as Chris, or did you have any different thoughts?
I mean, I was pretty deflated given how the game ended, because it looked like, one of those pivotal moments where we did actually show a bit of bottle and spine to come back, with a man down and a goal down, and it looked like we had won it in injury time. But Cyril Dessers was offside. Who saw that coming? So deflated afterwards, but I think I've been trying to think about, because I think we are all feeling quite similar. Like, we've seen this movie before. And it kind of occurred to me today that I think there's a danger that we are kind of transferring the experience of the last 18 months onto what is effectively a new project. So, yeah, we have seen Philippe Clement and Michael Beale teams look like they lost the plot and didn't look like we were going anywhere or could win anything. This is different. I'm not saying Russell Martin's going to be a success. I wasn't really very keen on him coming in, but if he's going to be a success, it's too early to say. But I think when we see performances like yesterday, and we're kind of, as the three of us kind of test here, pulling our hair out, it's not the same thing. This is a new regime. It's a new data-driven way of recruiting. It's a new data-driven way of recruiting the manager, so it seems. We're bedding in new players. We're 3 weeks away from the end of a window that's probably still going to change the squad, and we are building something. This isn't like giving Philippe Clement a team that wasn't good enough to win the league, and when he almost wins the league, then actually ripping the guts out of that and giving him an even worse squad. This is building towards something. I'm not saying it's going to be a success, but I think we need to differentiate between what we've seen, and it's difficult because it is what we've seen for 18 months. But I think we need to kind of try and stay positive, because this is something that can get better. The squad Philippe Clement had, I don't think you could have won much with. This, I think we need to hold our nerve a wee bit and try and focus on the positive shoots we're seeing in Europe. But it's difficult after games like yesterday. It's tough.
I think the main thing I disagree with you there, Billy, is I don't think any of the three of us is pulling out much hair, but other than that, I think you were pretty much bang on, mate. Thanks for everyone that is tuning in, seeing lots in the comments. Please do keep it coming. Agree or disagree, absolutely fine. Just chuck it in. We'll try and get through as much as we can. Just a quick word to the sponsors of To The Match I Go. So you can find them on Facebook or online, all your Rangers memorabilia, and they also do some custom stuff as well on request. give them a look. If you are taking anything from them, then enter the code Journal10 at checkout and you'll get a 10% discount. If you do like what you hear tonight, please do like and subscribe to the channel. So, first time in 36 years that we failed to win either of our two games. Now, I understand there's kind of talk of project, rebuild, yada yada. You know, we all know the buzzwords by now, but I think that fact in of itself, it's probably setting a bit of alarm bells off for a lot of people. Now, obviously, that season in 1989 didn't end too badly. Nice wee run came out the back of that, but very different time now. Obviously, the rivals are in a reasonably good position from their side of things. So they are very much the kind of benchmark that we need to attack. And I don't think many of the fans have got much patience for that. Chris, do you think that, you know, obviously Martin's come in, a lot of people weren't up for it, in fairness. Some were, some kind of had him pegged as the guy to beat the low block. Again, we'll come to that in a bit. Do you think it's reasonable for us to expect that level of success, or not? Not success, not as in winning trophies, but certainly winning games, given the budget disparity, the kind of draw that Rangers have compared to like Sam Motherwell or a Dundee. Do you think it's actually a reasonable expectation, or are you in the kind of we have to give this time camp?
To be honest, Dave, I'm probably in a bit of both camps, if I'm being honest at the moment. I think, look, it's Rangers Football Club. There's an expectation there that we win every game. That's always been the expectation. That expectation will never go away. And Rangers should, 99% of the time, be winning these games a lot easier than what they're doing at this moment in time. So I think that expectation, I think, look, you look at the squad, as Billy attested, you look at the squad and look at the players that have come in since the start of the season. I think it's fair for fans to have that expectation that the game against Motherwell, well, it would have been hard, should have been taken care of. And then there's absolutely the expectation that the game yesterday, 100% should have been taken care of. Now, don't get me wrong, Dundee deserve a little bit of credit for the way they set up and how they went about the game. But we're at home, the Rangers Football Club, and you've got a higher standard of players than what Dundee have, with all respect to them. You should be easily taking care of that game yesterday. And I think that's what the expectation was from most fans yesterday. Going into the game, I'd heard some crazy scorelines, 6-7-0, 4-5-0, all those different types of things was getting banded about. And I don't think anyone would have thought any different if he'd scored the first goal earlier on. I think the challenge is that you didn't see any urgency from the team. You didn't see anything coming out of the block. And straight away, I think 15, 20 minutes in, you had that feeling of where this was going to go. So to then answer the second part of your question, does he need time? I absolutely agree. I think he needs the time. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But the challenge we've got here, and I come back to the point I made earlier, is about the apathy. When Rangers draw or lose a game, you'll hear the fans, and you heard them last Saturday at Motherwell, and the reaction that the team got. That never happened yesterday, not to that same extent. And I think when that starts happening, when you start getting the fans in the situation where they're not given the reaction you would expect, you're starting to lose that crowd already. And I know we can see in the comments people talking about how many games he's got to save himself in terms of Martin here. I think the fans are not going to give him a lot of time on this. They really are not. And I think that's going to be the challenge for Russell Martin, is how does he keep the fans on side whilst putting in good European performances, what he has done. But the league's the bread and butter, and we need to. That's the one that need to win on. And right now, we're behind on rivals, and that's not acceptable for Rangers, especially 2 games in. So I'll be honest, Dave, I generally don't see him getting a lot of time from the Rangers fans. The board, I think, will be different. I think they will give him the time that he needs. But from a Rangers fans' point of view, I don't think it will be the same time. And I think that's where the challenge is going to come, is when you lose the Rangers fans, then you're not on a winner after that.
We all know how quickly the environment can become very, very toxic within Ibrox if, you know, things continue in this vein.
Yeah.
Billy, what would you say is a reasonable kind of time to allow Martin to get his ideas over the players? And it's maybe setting you up a wee bit here, but if you think back to last year, we had Clement, and it was, you'd see this best team by November. Now, obviously, that didn't particularly work out. Do you think it's fair to put a kind of target on that? When should we expect to see Martin's style click in?
Well, in all fairness to Clement, he didn't say which November, so technically he might still win the ballpark. And you're talking about things turning toxic at Ibrox. I think Andrew might be talking about me going happy clapping nonsense from this guy because I'm the only one without my name up. I don't think I'm happy clapping in saying I didn't want Russell Martin as the choice for manager. All the choices were flawed, but I'd have gone for Steven Gerrard. But having brought him in with a new squad and new players and a new system, every single, we had quite a few, I think we had Pete Selby and a few people on from like Southampton podcasts on here. Everyone you spoke to at Russell Martin's previous club says the same things. The football will eventually be really nice, but it will take a while to bed in. It will take months. And this is where your question's valid, but I don't think there's a metric you can put on it. I think what he needs to do is he needs to make progress in Europe, which he's doing, and give us hope in the league. So I think, rather than saying he needs to have the team playing this way or that way by November or by December, I think what we need to feel is that we're seeing a style of play and the gap with Celtic is something we could eat into. The danger is when you're only 2 games in and you're giving them 4 points and we're potentially looking to postpone the St Mirren game because of the chance of going through in Europe. We could be going to the Chamber of Secrets with the danger of going 10 points behind. And that is going to put pressure on. So I don't think there's a definitive by the 1st of November we need to see Brazil 1970 style football. But I do think you're right to say that I think he's suffering a wee bit from people weren't that enthused about him, and also we are sort of battle scarred from the last 18 months. I think what he needs to do is, I think he's pretty much got pass marks in Europe. Getting us into Europa League is good. If we get into the Champions League, that could be a big help in terms of finances. I think what he needs to do very soon is have the team starting to rack up points so that the gap doesn't grow any bigger to Celtic. Maybe they drop points. Hopefully we go into the Old Firm game with a chance to narrow the gap. And I think that's going to be the thing, because even if the 49ers are determined, and Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marat seem like very determined guys, even if they're determined he's going to go through the season come hell or high water, he's going to be very damaged in the Rangers fans' eyes if he doesn't put in a decent challenge this season. So I understand why we're dropping points early on. I understand why the system's not gelling. But to answer your question, I think if he can keep us within striking distance of Celtic by Christmas, and then you're hoping to see this football make a difference, like week in, week out. Whether or not he does that at the moment, because the pressure's on psychologically. When we go out now, teams can actually turn the screw on us by saying, let's just keep this 0-0 for half an hour. They'll start sweating. And one of the things I'd spoken about in another pod is I don't think we've got enough experienced players to deal with this at the moment. I think the leadership group is thin. I think we've got lots of young, talented players, but they need support. Your Antman and your Gassam need more senior players in to help them through in like games like yesterday. So I would say like a live title challenge by Christmas, and that could be 4, 5, 6 points behind Celtic. But if you've got a couple of games and we're an improving side, then at least you've got hope. And I think what you alluded to there, Dave, is like it's the hope that gets you one way or another. So yeah, as long as we're within striking distance, I would say give them a chance to improve. Happy clapping over.
Aye, happy clapping. It does set us up quite nicely, actually, your response there for my last question before we move on to the next bit. So, Chris, I'll come to you on it. What's with the disparity between Europe and domestic football? Is it, and I mean, I know we talked about this beforehand, obviously, the viewers didn't get a chance to hear that. Is it, in your eyes, mentality that, Europe's a big game, whereas playing Dundee with the greatest respect, some players might see it not a big game. Is it that the tactics aren't transferable? What do you think is the cause of that disparity? Because it's multiple managers, different players, same old issue.
Absolutely, David. I think it's a bit of both. Again, I think the mentality's there. I think anyone who's listened to Billy Dodds over the last few weeks will hear exactly what his thoughts are on it, and it was mentality for him. I think there is a mentality issue there in terms of the players just can't get up for these type of games, and we've seen that last season. We're now seeing it seeping in this season. I think Martin touched on it last week in his post-match interview. When you look at the European games we look at a totally different team. We've set up the same way essentially, but we look at a totally different team. The interesting thing for me though, Dave, was you look at what Martin said last week, and he's talked about how there was going to be changes in the team, and you wouldn't normally see the same team happen every week. Is what he fairly touched on, without exactly saying that. And then you came into the game yesterday, and he said in his post-match he should have changed it up. I think he absolutely should have changed it up. I don't think Rothwell should have started yesterday. I think Raskin, when he came on, when you've seen what Raskin gave to the side in the last 20 minutes, I think he has to be a number one starter in that position, in that number 6 role. In trying to get over the way that Rangers are going to play into the Scottish game, it's a really, really tough one, because if the teams come to Ibrox and sit in like Dundee done yesterday, as Billy said, 20-25 minutes in, you know where that story's going to go. That's not going to be an ever-changing story. I was looking at some of the stats before we came in here. Suter and Giga made together nearly 250 passes between them last night on that game. And you look at Diamonde and Cameron, and they made under 50 passes between them in the game. For me, that's passing for passing's sake at the back. There's no drive, there's no movement. It's the mentality of thinking they're just going to keep passing and something will come. It's not. There's not enough drive within that team at the moment, and it comes down to kind of get themselves up for the smaller games. Yes, we can see they can do it in Europe, and we've managed to do that, but they're not doing it in the league. And as I said, the league's the bread and butter. Something has to change at Ibrox in terms of getting that in, whether it comes from Martin himself and his coaching team, or whether it comes from, as you said, the more experienced players. And I think, to be fair to Rothwell, I'm probably giving him a disservice. He is probably one of the most experienced players in there, and he's the type of player you would want. But we probably need a wee bit more around that, and I just don't think we've got enough of that. And I think once you get that wee bit more experience, that's when I think you'll start to see that mentality changing. But until that experience comes in, I don't think we're going to see that mentality change, and that's a real worry. And it's got to be a worry for Martin going forward, I think.
Just before we move on from that, Chris, I was going to save this one until later, but I'll just pop it up now. So this is the pass maps from the Dundee game and the top combinations. So just to reinforce what you're saying there, obviously the top combination is the 2 centre-backs, and it's centre-back to full-back on the left, centre-back to full-back on the right. There's a very similar pattern here. It's almost like a little triangle between the back 4 and Rothwell. And pretty much all our major passing routes were from that. When you kind of move forward a bit, those numbers drop ridiculously. So I think when I looked, Cameron had like less than 20 touches and passes. Same for Diamande on the other side of midfield. So I just wanted to kind of flash that up, because I thought it was a really good point about how we're just knocking it around the back. We're not actually trying to show any invention, any drive to, if it comes to Rothwell, from my mind, he should be looking to turn and immediately play it forward to a Cameron or a Dio, or spread it a bit wider to a Gassama or a Antman. But what he shouldn't be doing is just constantly bouncing it back to the centre-backs. So I just wanted to share that. Scotty, welcome to the pod, mate. How you doing?
Aye, not bad at all, Dave. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, got you now, mate.
Aye, not bad at all, mate. Not bad at all. Sorry for my lateness. It was unavoidable.
Well, no, pleasure to have you here, mate. Okay, so let's move on, I've got a video for you guys, so you get to watch this. It's only a minute or so. It's one that I put up on the socials earlier, and it's generated a lot of discussion. So it's the Dundee goal. What I want you to pay attention to here is the way that we set up for defending this. So let me just pop it up. So I'm just going to pause it there, and since you've not had a chance to speak, Scotty, I'll come to you on this one. What is that, right? I know that's not much of a question, but just looking here, this goal for a start feels like something that we've seen 100 times. You can see the three circles with the red bases, right? In theory, they should be marking the Dundee players. They're not. Then we've got these guys that are doing the zonal marking. Actually, when I play it on, you'll see they do nothing. Why is it across multiple managers we're losing the same old goal? And I'll just play it on for you to see. Whilst that's playing, just a quick welcome to the channel, Chaz. Thanks very much for signing up to be a member. Appreciated as always. I'm just going to pull it down now. You've seen that. Scotty, why can't we fix this?
It's $1 million question, really, isn't it? It's lads, see if you're not. We need to mute in between because we're getting comments that we've got feedback. If you're not talking, just stick your mic on mute for us. So it's eat, sleep, lose a goal, repeat. To be honest with you, when it comes to set pieces, it's the same crap we heard last season. Come on, I love set pieces. I'll fix it. Didn't get fixed. The only one that really fixed it was Ferguson. To be honest with you, we looked a bit maybe a threat under Fergie. It's the one thing he did improve. It's 2 games into the season. We need to give us time. I think like that goal. There's so many things wrong with it. There's obviously trying to hold a high line. Dessers is the one that plays the ball inside. He's the one that's marking. He's the only player marking in that whole line. Like at the beginning of the line, just behind the ball, he looks as if he's marking a player. Then there's a row of players, 5-6 players that aren't marking anybody, and then there's a crowd of them at the back that are unmarked. That's obviously where the ball gets played to. And when that ball gets played, that's where Dessers is. Dessers is playing all of them boys on side. So in the first, I think it gets knocked on, didn't it? When the first header comes in, Butland, he highlighted him on his line as well. Doesn't move his feet quick enough. That's a bit like how do I put it? That's a bit overly critical, I would say, Dave, if I'm being honest with you. I think that's petty, criticising Butland. I should have moved his feet quicker. It could have been in a different position, but what's the chances of getting looked fair when you've got how many players in front of you? X amount. I'm going to stop talking just now, Dave, because I'm getting some comments about my sound, so I'm going to try and fix that just now.
Not a problem, mate. And I think it's fair to say, Butland, for me, I don't think a keeper should be lobbed when he's basically on his line, right? But he was far from the biggest problem there. The biggest problem is, one, you've got multiple of them that are just completely ball watching. They're not watching their man, they're looking at where the ball's going. You've got the Dundee players to the far right of that initial image we flashed up that basically aren't being marked, which allows their man to get a free header to put it back across the box. And then finally, your zonal marking. Maybe I'm an old-fashioned Rangers dad. I've never been a huge fan of zonal marking, but my understanding was you were meant to mark off different parts of the pitch. The zonal markers are all in one wee box, all sat there watching the boy get a free header. It's just horrific. Just before we move on, then, just thanks again, Chaz. Massively appreciated. Really is. Anyone that takes the time to sign up and especially give a donation, we more than appreciate it. So thank you for that. Just last thing on that, then, and I'll come to you on this one, Bobby. It's a goal that we've seen an awful lot of times from Rangers, and there's actually an element of me now that thinks opposition teams must practice this before they come and play us. It's not the first time they've done it. It's the sort of thing that they know they're going to get a free kick or a corner at some point. It gives them the perfect opportunity just to, sling a ball in and hope that they can get that initial contact, put it back across and pick up the scraps in the middle. So what do you think? Do you think that should be a priority to work on, or do you think it's something that we should maybe almost just accept? That, almost the philosophy, as long as we score more, it doesn't matter? Or do you think we should really tighten down on that and try and stifle the oppositions?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Russell Martin's take on it is. I know that Rangers managers ad infinitum have talked about the difficulty of getting quality training time when you're playing, on a Tuesday and a Saturday and you're 2 games a week. So I understand they have limited time, but it's funny you brought that up, Dave, because I was thinking this today. I was like, if you are an opposition team, of course you're going to target set pieces because they have been an Achilles heel for a number of seasons. You're not going to create an awful lot in open play against Rangers. So I guarantee you, these teams are spending extra hours every week working on their set pieces. Problem we've got is we're in Europe, so we have less time. But I would, if you encourage teams to get goals a certain way against you, they're going to keep doing it until they stop getting goals against you that way. So I would be expecting special focus to be on defending set pieces, because it has to undermine the confidence of the whole team. If you know that every time you have a set piece against you, it's like you're on your nerves and you might be a goal down and then suddenly you're playing catch up. That really does. I think that spreads through the whole team. So I would like to see us, putting in extra time defending set pieces, actually focusing on that through the week. The question though is, like, do we have the time to do it? Two quick tangents. One, it was like Scotty mentioned about Phil Clement taking the set pieces. I could never understand why he owned up to that, because we were so rotten under him that the fact that he kept claiming that as his specialism was like, I couldn't get it. And the one other thing, this is a wee bit of a sidebar, and goes into sort of VAR territory. This is going to sound like a wee bit sort of tin hat time, but does anyone explain to me why last season and this season, when there's really marginal offside calls, the lines are drawn with a picture before the guys kick the ball? Because last season there was a narrow offside, and me and my brother sat watching that going, aye, but like, what happens once he actually makes contact with the ball? Because when you look at the Dundee, the guy who gets the first header in, he is almost, maybe even is offside. But what we get shown in the replay, which I watched earlier on again, what we get shown is the setup before the Dundee player has actually made contact with the ball. And I know that sounds a bit tinfoil hat, but we have seen VAR not being applied. We have seen the rules of VAR not being applied consistently over the last season. So when I see stuff like that, there is a bit of me going, just run that on a bit and let me see where the Dundee player's shoulder is when he makes contact with the ball. And then, then I'll stop complaining about it. But anyway, I'll let tin hat now off.
It's fair enough. And I have seen a few comments about the refereeing, predominantly from opposition fans on social media. So I guess just to address that then, Chris, the penalty and the sending off. So for you, were they both correct? Do you think maybe they're both weak, but if you give him one, you've got to give the other? What was your general thoughts on those decisions?
Let's start with the sending off, first of all. I think the sending off, look, if that's the other way around, you're scheming for it every day of the week, aren't you? And he's been caught on the wrong side. It's been a good ball played through, to be fair, to the Dundee player. And I would have just liked to have seen Giga run on a little bit and see if he could have actually got in front of the guy or at least put a tackle in. And if you're going to take the guy out, take him out with at least trying to attempt to get the ball. Don't just let him go straight away. So I think that was a bit disappointing from that perspective. I think there was one later in the game, there was a 2-on-1. Rassins came back and took the ball away in a very similar position as well. I'd have liked to have seen Giga try to do that a little bit. But for that one, would we say the referee's made a mistake? I don't think he has. And I think VAR's pretty quickly looked at that. And I think looking back on it again today, I was at the game yesterday, so you don't see many replays in the game. But looking back on it and highlights wise, yeah, it looked a clear red, so I wouldn't have been any concerns. The penalty, first viewing for me is a penalty all day long. I've looked back on it a couple of times. I can see where people are questioning some of it, but it's a clear penalty, Dave. You can see as soon as he runs into the box, there's a pull on the shirt. Has he been down a bit theoretically? Maybe. And again, if that's the other way around, you're probably questioning that of the player if you're playing against that. But there's a clear tug on him. It's a penalty all day long. To talk about what we're talking about with VAR, my issue with VAR is how quickly things are not given for us as a team. I think is the thing, compared to how in depth we go when it's looking for things that have been given to us. That's my concern with it. And I think we've seen that in previous games. We've seen it yesterday, we've seen it in previous games. That's always where my concern comes in, is it just seems to be that the decisions that are for us is made too quickly, and there's not enough in depth looking into it. I was a bit disappointed to hear some pundits last night say that Gassama had dived. Some people say that he's put himself into that position. He's got to be in that position. If he's not in that position, then he's never going to get pulled back in the first instance. So he's going to be there. But for me, the penalty's a penalty all day long. The red card all day long as well. I can't see anything in that. It's disappointing now, because if we do go to the situation with St Mirren and not playing in a few weeks, then Jigga's out the old firm, which is a shame. So I don't know what the situation is there, and that's maybe something we'll talk on another pod or another day. But we need to look at that, I think, and see. It's a shame, but it gives other people a chance, and maybe Fernandez coming in, or maybe depending if we got a new signing by that point in time. But just disappointing that he's going to miss out, because I've actually thought, well, he's not made great strides, Jigga. I think he's actually been okay, and he's been fairly one of the most steady players that we've had. Just disappointing yesterday we couldn't keep him on the park for the 90 minutes, because I think if we had kept him on the park for 90 minutes and we'd shown that urgency as we went on through the game, there's a very high chance we could have went there and sneaked it. But yeah, without that, when you're down to 10 men, it was difficult, and all tactics went out the window in that last 10 minutes, as we see.
Yeah, and I think what made me chuckle is I saw the same comments. He's completely played for it, he's dived, and these were the same people that were saying it was really intelligent play for the Dundee forward to run across Jigga and be caught like that. So, it's one or the other, right? If you're going to say a light touch is enough by the letter of the law, fine. They're both legit. If you're going to say one isn't right because there was minimal contact, then that applies to both of them. I don't think you can have one or the other and reasonably justify it. Scotty, I'm going to come on to our striking options now. I don't want to spend ages on this, right? But Danilo, I think for me, we've had this discussion already. For me, I think he had a really good pre-season since the competitive stuff started. And, there's probably a lot of caveats that you can give in his favour, not least of which he started with Dowell to his right for most of his competitive games. But Danilo has looked isolated and not been able to impact the game. Dessers obviously had a great game on Tuesday, then reverted to the Dessers we all love to hate. So that a lot of fans are now Christ Dessers. Do you think that we need a new striker in? Do you think it's that simple, or do you think we can make use of the guys that are in the building?
Yes, we've needed a striker in since we were last in a title run, I would say, Dave. That's how long it's been since we've needed a striker in. The striking department has needed a refresh. The strikers that Michael Beale brought in haven't been good enough. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust here. The strikers that Michael Beale brought in haven't been good enough. Cyril Dessers isn't a good enough striker. As a squad striker, yeah, you could argue all day. Danilo, he's been flurried with injuries. Both strikers under Russell Martin have been isolated to a degree. Danilo, I felt really sorry for him in terms of the games he's played. He's had absolutely no service. He's had no chances created for him. He's had a young boy he's left and a player that shouldn't be playing for Rangers playing out of position on his right. Then a midfield behind him that wasn't quite gelled. The chemistry wasn't right on it. So I'm willing to give Danilo a pass on that one. Dessers is Dessers, as I say. Agaman is probably the right mix between the two of them for the role, I would say. He's probably get the right ability, touch, technique, power, pace. He's got an eye for goal. I think when Niggerman's on his day, he's probably he likes to drop deep. He can make things happen. He's got a sharp turn. He's got all the things that we're really missing up front just now. Danilo likes to drop deep, and he's not really got the physicality to hold the ball up to make it stick when Rangers do progress the ball forward really quickly. I think that's a fair criticism. Dessers yesterday, I mean, there was touches that made me think he wasn't fit enough. I mean, certain touches just bounced off him, certain touches come off. It's just a typical kind of Cyril Dessers performance. And then it costs you one goal for the Dundee. It's not his fault, right? I'm not. I sound as if I'm blaming him. This is the way I come across about Cyril Dessers all the time. I don't mean it, but he plays the Dundee goal onside, and then for the winner, he's offside. When instead of just ball watching, if he's a quick look across the line and steps back quickly, he scores you a winner. And if he watches, it looks like for a Dundee goal, it's a completely different outcome. So that's the fine lines, the fine margins that you've potentially got one striker that's cost you points yesterday. If you want to put the blame in one guy, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm stating facts that's happened within a game of football. I think Rangers really do need to go out and sign, whether it's Tuggeman, Friggin, Tuggeman the boy for Israel, Friggin the boy that's playing for Westerlo, who's under Assam Sharai. Dave, to me, if we'd went and signed Lawrence Shankland on a free contract and we'd signed him, but I know you laugh, but this would all have been solved had we had a number 9 that could play in the league. They can take a first touch, it's got an eye for goal, that's got the physicality. He's been right on my doorstep for the last 2 years, and Rangers haven't went and done anything about it. Now, granted, this is the last time I'm going to mention Shankland on a Rangers Journal pod, because the ship is well and truly sunk, right? It's gone, it's done. But it's an example of yet another Scottish player Rangers have missed out on. It's almost as bad as missing out on Lewis Ferguson to me. Rangers need a striker that badly. Rangers have always needed a 6 and needed a striker. Me and Cammy used to argue in the chat about when we needed Mel last season. And I says we need a striker, and Cammy would say we needed a 6. We really, really need a striker in this summer, because a good striker can bang your goals in, that can pull a team through and get you points. Well, you just need to win in transition. I don't care how we win. We need to beat Dundee at home, and we need to beat Motherwell away. We've been gifted a good start, and we've dropped 4 points already. 2, I don't know, 4. My maths is crap. So, and I just think a good striker who can bang goals in the league can change that narrative, and it is that easy to me.
To be fair, I was laughing because you've mentioned him once or twice. I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying. It's almost like the modern day Boyd in the team. You can just rely on him domestically to smash in a ton of goals.
Dave, it's a tap-in. It's a complete and utter tap-in that we've missed an open goal on. It's been there for 2 years now that we could have went out and signed this boy, and we didn't. And,
Rangers way, mate. Right. Billy, I'm going to come to you with a similar question, different position. I think Curry's going to be happy in the comments. right back. So Tav, he's done. His legs are gone. He's not the player he was. Let's get someone new in. So fine. Russell Martin went and got someone new in. We got Max Aarons, full of promise as a younger player. Maybe lost his way a bit. Needs a bit of fixing in the true Michael Beale sense. Let's get someone that hasn't fulfilled their promise and fix them. On the evidence that I've seen this far this season, I don't think either of them particularly looks like the answer. What's your thoughts on it, Billy?
Before I answer that, Buffalo Alberts had said Michael Stewart is a bitter failed trialist, and I have to actually challenge him on that. Michael Stewart is a bitter failed trialist, pundit, and candidate for MSP. He is a crap Renaissance man. So, give the guy credit. He's bitter and failed in more than one category, and that takes some doing. On the right back situation, I think you've kind of almost answered your own question there in some ways, Dave, because Aarons is someone who is, he's shown promise. He's had a bit of up and down performances in the last season, and he may take a little bit of time to settle in, especially when we've started off sticking him at left back where he clearly wasn't comfortable and nobody thought he was doing a great job. But Russell Martin alluded to the fact that Jefty was not doing the things in game or in training that would get him a spot at left back, and until he did, he wasn't going to be considered. So that's fine from Russell Martin. And I think going forward, I would be sticking with Aarons at right back and giving him a chance, actually doing the old manager thing of saying you've got 5 or 6 games, don't worry about it, relax and settle into it. Tav looks like a player now that the manager almost sees more as a weapon to be deployed in the last 30 minutes, where he can actually run about energetically for 30 minutes in a way that he can't do for 60 or 90 minutes. And you kind of see him drifting inside to set things up and almost looking a wee bit sort of like an old dog revitalised by the possibility to do that. I just think with Aarons, it's too early. He played out that fantastic ball through for Antman in the game the other night. I mean, just that's one of those moments where, as Rangers fans, we're very quick to go one way or another on players. And if someone comes in and they look like a dud, it can take a long time to shift that. Equally, if a player gives us something to hold on to, then we are inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I just thought that pass, I mean, literally from inside your own half, the weight on it, the positioning of it, as good as Ant-Man was in looking up and seeing Gassam and clipping the ball in, he could do that because he wasn't worrying about the pace of the ball. He wasn't worrying about the pass. It was perfect. And I think if he's got that in his locker, we've got to give him a chance. I mean, he's been brought in to play. Tavernier has not got the legs to play a league season and be effective. If Aarons isn't the answer, we better be looking for another backup because it's not Tav for a full season. But I would say I've seen enough to think that Aarons can grow into the role. But we need to play him there, and I suspect that's what Russell Martin's going to do. But for me, again, maybe I'm happy clapping, but I'm seeing reasons to be positive about Aarons. He's hardly got into the right back slot. Let him actually play in his position for a few weeks. It's his second game in the madhouse that is Scottish football, where it's different rules and different style, and it literally is different rules the way the referees look at it. So no, I'd be sticking with Aarons. And if we're having this conversation in a couple of months' time, yeah, that's a worry. But I don't think you can judge him coming into new club, new culture, a club where he's expected to win every week, a club where he's been filling in at left back, where he's taken over from the captain. I've seen enough flashes of promise to say I'd be sticking with him.
Fair enough. I have to admit, for me, I think the jury's still very much out. I give him a bit of leeway for the fact that he was playing out of position for his first kind of few competitive games. Playing at left back, it was pretty damn obvious that wasn't his bag, but I think he needs to do more in the right back position, especially domestically for me. But as you say, time will tell. Chris, I'm going to come to you on the stats, and thanks to Doug as always for putting these together. If you look at these stats, we were very, very dominant, right? But we didn't do an awful lot with it. I think we all know that. And actually, looking at some of the more in-depth scouts on the old Y Scout subscription that we've got, it's really weird because actually, if you look at all the different metrics, expected goals, shots, all the kind of things that you would be looking at for a team to do well, we're actually improving. And I think for me, that's a real example of where sometimes the stats don't tell you the whole situation. So, just as an example, shots, I think we took something like 7 more shots against Dundee than we did against Pilsen. 1 more on target, and yet completely different outcome, because I would suggest the quality of the chances that we were fashioning at the weekend were nowhere near as good as what we were fashioning against Pilsen. So does it kind of concern you that actually the stats are getting better, which is something this manager's really kind of focused in on? He is very much, I want intelligence. I want my players making the right passes, the right shots, all at the right time. And everything's getting better in the background, but actually we're turning in a performance like yesterday? Or do you think it's more of a kind of bump in the road?
I think it's a real concern, Dave. I really do. I think stats are good for what they'll tell you and what you want to hear in a game. The stats could have been the best stats ever yesterday. The fact that Rangers didn't get 3 points and didn't win that game, the fans are not going to care about that at the end of the day. They are going to care about making sure that Rangers put a performance in and take the 3 points at the end of the day. I think, interesting yesterday, 20 shots on goal for Rangers, 5 shots on target. Really poor. That's a poor return in that one. And I can't remember off the top of my head exactly when it was, but I think it was the second half before we made the goalkeeper make a save. I think it was the first save he's made in that one. That's not Rangers at home at Ibrox. That's not how we play. That's not how we should be playing. That's certainly not how we should be playing the first game of the season after a performance like Motherwell. And it's certainly not what Russell Martin's going to want Rangers to do. As much as the stats will be great, the stats are not going to keep this guy in a job. But what's going to keep this guy in a job, and he said it himself, is the 3 points, getting the results and making sure that Rangers are winning. I think, like yesterday, we were always going to have the lion's share of possession against Dundee. We knew how Dundee were going to set up. Like most teams, as we say, they're going to come to Ibrox and set up. They're going to sit in. They're going to put 10 men behind the ball. And Dundee did that for most of the first half, majority of the second half, other than the chances we've already spoken about they had. So those stats are going to come out really good for Rangers because they've got most of the possession. Accurate passes, you can see there. Accurate passes 657 to 169 for Dundee. So all of those stats are going to be head and shoulders above. The stats, it's not as the scoreline. And that's what matters to 99.9% of the Rangers fans. And we can see it in the comments tonight. The fans are annoyed. The fans are unhappy. The results are just not there. And it's something needs to happen quickly. If the next game that you've got in the league is against Celtic, then there's big challenges. There's big challenges for Rangers, and there needs to be some changes there. The interesting one for me is going to be what we do when Eagleman, if he comes back in, Asgard and Mikey Moore. Where do they fit into this? Because if you're looking at that, Gassama and Antman are possibly your first choice on both sides, right? Eagleman, does he get in ahead of Dessers? I think Scott was saying yes. I think he does. I think he would be in there all day long. Where does Asgard and Mikey Moore fit in at this? And that'll be an interesting one. And I think based on where we've seen or what we've seen in the last couple of league games, I think we might see Eagleman and Asgard a lot quicker than what Russell Martin is probably hoping that we're going to see at the moment, because he needs them in there and needs something to drive this. My question is, where do they fit in, and do they fit into the tactics that Martin has got? Because when you look at that, it's a simple 4-3-3 in terms of we think Rangers shape up, but we're overloading those wide positions where the wide men are not getting the opportunity to do what they need to do because Cameron and Diamondi are playing too close to them. What was really interesting with Dundee yesterday was every time we put the ball out wide, there was 2 or 3 men round the wide men. So they clearly seen that as an area to exploit and an area to put Rangers on the back foot, because anytime Gassama or Ant-Man tried to get it, there was no space. So what they were doing, they were turning back and they were going back into the middle, or they were going back to the defence again. So all of that was picked up quite easily. But again, the concern is that happened last weekend as well. That was getting picked up by Motherwell quite easily, and it's getting picked up by Dundee. That tells me that teams have already cottoned on to how Russell Martin wants to play, and there's just no plan B at the moment. I think I mentioned earlier on, the best for me for Rangers was in that last 10 minutes when there was no tactics. Tactics were out the window. It was a case of let's get a goal, let's go forward, and let's try and see where we end up. And that's what happened. And that's where the urgency came in. That's where the players started playing. We've seen it for Dessler's goal that was offside, and again, I'm with Scott on this one. He should never have been offside in that situation. That's lazy from Dessler's in that situation. But if you look at the build up to it, the ball gets played through the lines. I think it was Gassama that played it in. Danilo's made the flick on. That's the first time through that game. I think maybe first or second time in the game we've actually played a ball through from the middle through. Otherwise, it's been going down the left or going down the right. First time we played the ball through, and it's breached the defence. If Dessler's is not as lazy as what he was yesterday in that situation. And look, I'm probably being unfair. I don't think he's fit enough at the moment. I think that's the challenge. I think if he's onside there, then you get that goal and we're going home happy. Okay, performance is not great, but you're still going home happy at the end of the day. But that was the first time we've seen that, and it took us to the 96, 97 minute for that to happen. It's unacceptable. And as much as those tactics will tell us that Rangers are getting better league game on league game, but those tactics can beat any team any day of the week, as far as I'm concerned. What's going to make Rangers better is 3 points and getting to the top of that table. And if we don't do that, the fans will not buy into anything that Rangers are doing at the moment. And the worry is that that's starting to turn quite quickly, Dave.
Like we said at the start, I think half the problem there is a lot of fans never really wanted Martin in the first place. So they're going to be very, very unwilling to allow that kind of bedding in period without saying something. You know, ultimately it is on Martin to win those fans over. The only way he does it, like you say, getting the 3 points, getting the wins, getting through into the Champions League, actually making a title fight domestically. These are all things that, you know, he has to do very quickly. Just before we wrap up then, I just want to go around each year. Based on what we saw yesterday, and I guess against Motherwell in the first domestic game, what do you think's the most important position that we need to focus on the rest of the window now, Scotty?
Striker, Dave. Striker. Badly need a striker. Can't be anything else. Just good. I believe, personally, just my thoughts. I don't know nothing. We're not in the Naughty Rangers Journal. We never have been, we never will be. Don't want us to be. I believe that Rangers will spend on a striker. I just think that we've not yet to spend decent money on a big fee on a player. I think it'll be on a forward.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a need for it. Billy, same question to yourself, mate. Would you agree with Scotty that a striker's our most pressing need, or do you think somewhere else on the pitch?
I think where we stand just now, in the rebuild, the striker, whether we're still in for Turgeman, I don't know, but someone who's going to link up the Russell Martin style of play, because he's sort of making and mending with what we've got at the moment. I would also, I think we're talking about has been in for Mendy in central defence. I would like, again, I'm looking at this squad and I'm thinking we're missing the sort of seasoned pros who can steady the younger, because we have a lot of young talented players, but these are not guys who are used to carrying a team. They're going to have to learn to if they want to be successful at Rangers. But, you know, a Scotty Arfield type, you know, someone in the leadership group to freshen it up, you know, because Rothwell was supposed to be part of that. So where that is, whether that's, you know, it was going to be Connor Cody until it wasn't. So where that's going to be, I'm not sure. But I'd struggle to disagree with Scotty about the striker. As it stands, that's the one that needs fixed for the whole system, I think.
Yeah, and Chris, just before I kind of give my own thoughts. What about yourself? Would you agree with striker, or do you think somewhere else in the pitch?
I think there's a couple of positions, Dave, for me that needs to be strengthened at the moment. First of all, let me start with striker. I agree with the gents on that. Absolutely agree. Striker needs to be priority. Now, I don't know if Martin's looking and saying you've got Eagleman there, and he said last week there's no bids for Eagleman that's came in. So as he expects Eagleman to stay, he's also brought Mikey Moore in, who, let me just say, I don't know how much people saw of him, but from what I've seen of the guy, I think he's head and shoulders above any of the strikers we've got in Rangers at the moment. The challenge is going to be how young the boy is, and you can't rely on that for the full season. It's not fair to put that on his shoulders. So I think there needs to be a striker. Somebody's got to come in there, but I think one or two things has to happen. We either qualify for the Champions League in order to get the money for that, or we need to sell big for someone to get out from a striker point of view. The other position I would say for me is centre back. Suter, we can't rely on. I don't think we can say hand on heart he's going to go through a full season without any concerns. Okay, he's had a good couple of games, but he's still at certain points he can be a bit of a bomb scare. Fernandes, we don't know what he's like at the moment. He was by all means bought for a development fee, or for a development going forward, but his fee was in the region of what, 3 million from what we understand. I think we need another central defender in there. I don't think we can go in with what we've got at the moment and say that's enough for the season. There needs to be something there. And again, just to come back to what we're talking about for Aarons, the jury's very much out on him as well. Yes, you've got Aarons and you've got Tav, but if Aarons is not going to give you the level of performance that you need, and obviously fans have made their mind up in Tav in terms of where he goes, then there's an argument that says you need to fill that position. So realistically, Dave, I think there could be 3 or 4 signings that you still need to make in order to say you've got the strength and depth and you've got a really good first team. But if I was the same as anyone else, my money would be getting put on a striker. You need to put a striker in there, and a striker who can take the chances like yesterday, like Dessers has had, and make sure he stays on side and puts it in the back of the net, because ultimately putting the ball in the back of the net and getting 3 points is what we need at the moment, and we're just not doing that enough just now. I think someone said to me a few weeks ago that this will be the lowest scoring Rangers side in a number of seasons. I thought they were off their head at first when they said that. 2 games into the season, I'm not surprised that we've only scored the 2 goals we've scored, and I can now see that gentleman's point in terms of being the lowest team. And I think if we don't get a striker, we very well could be in that position coming into the season.
I think that's all fair, mate. I would tend to agree. I think striker is very much a pressing need. I think the other one for me, I totally agree for what it's worth. I think we need a left back and a centre back in to kind of fill those positions. But the other big one that stood out to me, and maybe Asgard is this player, although I would argue we probably need a second one. But I think we need someone that's a genuine fit for that kind of advanced 8 role that he seems to play 2 of. So obviously you've got Rothwell sitting back, and then he's been playing Raskin, Cameron, Dio like as 8s that are meant to drive forward. I don't think any of them naturally suit that position. And I just wonder if that is actually part of the problem. We talked earlier about that link between, all this passing that's going on around the back and actually getting it forward. And I'm just not seeing it. And I'm not convinced, other than Asgard, who I haven't really seen play because of his injury and that, I'm not convinced that the players we've got are actually the right fit for that, if I'm being totally honest. Okay, well, it's been a good one, and it's been pushing on. Scotty looks like he's about to nod off, so we'll probably wrap things up there. Just before I do go, Phil, I do want to give a mention. Obviously, yesterday we found out that a fan didn't come home from the game. I don't care what team you support. I don't care what your rivalries are. No fan should go to a game of football and not return home. So the thoughts that everyone at the Journal are with that fan's family at this time. Other than that, if you have enjoyed what you've heard tonight, and if you want to contribute in the chat, please do like and subscribe to the channel. we do obviously have our sponsor Off to the Match I Go. You can see all the details there. You can find them online and on Facebook. And if you're buying anything from them, enter the code Journal10 to get yourself a nice 10% discount. They do a whole range of memorabilia, custom framing, all that kind of good stuff. So well worth a look. Other than that, Chris, thanks very much for joining tonight. It's been appreciated.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Scotty, you were here eventually. Cheers, pal. No, it was good having you, mate. Thanks for coming on.
No, sorry, mate. It's just family running all that kind of stuff. It was, as I said, it was unavoidable. Thanks for having me on, and I just kind of want to reiterate what you say about fans, family. It's a crying shame, and like you say, thoughts are with them at this very sad time. Chris, that was a good debut tonight.
Thanks, Scotty.
It was indeed. And Billy, last but certainly not least, how you doing? You happy, Clapper? Thanks for coming along.
Happy clapping, but I'll throw this grenade in and then duck because we're about to throw up the kind of credits. But
where's the finish button?
Booing our own players coming on, not for me. If you're booing Rangers players, you're in some sketchy company, so not for me. Bye.
Right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and remember, every night the Rangers Journal night.